One driver pays $728 a month. The other pays just $556. The cheaper payment looks like the smarter deal until you follow both drivers for 10 years. By the end, that cheaper choice costs about $33,000 more. Here's the math. 1. Why this decision is deceptively hard. The biggest problem with comparing buying and leasing is that most people start with the monthly payment. Imagine one dealer says, finance this car for about $728 a month. Another offer says, lease a comparable car for about $556. That looks simple. The lease saves more than $170 a month. But those two payments are doing different jobs. With a car loan, part of every payment reduces what you owe. Eventually, the balance hits zero, and you own the vehicle free of that auto loan. With a lease, you're generally paying for the portion of the vehicle's value you're expected to use, plus a financing, rent, charge, taxes, and fees. Federal consumer leasing rules require dealers to separate depreciation, residual value, and rent charges in lease disclosures. So the structure really is different, not just the number. That's why a lower payment doesn't automatically mean a lower long-term cost. Then there's depreciation. Cars lose value as they age. For an owner, that shows up as lower resale value down the road. For a lessee, expected depreciation is already baked into the lease math, and there's maintenance. Someone leasing a new car every few years spends most of the decade driving relatively new vehicles. Someone who keeps one car for 10 years eventually owns an older vehicle. Tires, brakes, fluids, suspension parts, repairs. So this comparison is really a fight between two advantages: lower payments and newer cars on one side, equity and payment-free years on the other. Let's see how that fight plays out. 2. Meet Ryan and Marcus. Our buyer is Ryan. Our lessee is Marcus. Both need a mainstream vehicle, both drive 12,000 miles a year, and both want roughly the same class of car. Here's where we separate verified market data from our own modeled assumptions. Kelley Blue Book recently put the average U.S. new vehicle transaction price near $49,800 in June 2026, but vehicles between $30,000 and $40,000 still made up a meaningful share of the market. So for this example, we'll use a $38,000 mainstream new vehicle. That figure is an illustrative assumption, not a national average. Experian recently reported average new car loan rates in the mid-6% range, depending heavily on credit. We'll give Ryan a 6.4% APR on a 60-month loan. Ryan puts $3,000 down. Our hypothetical location charges 6% vehicle tax plus $450 in registration and documentation fees. The 6% tax adds $2,280. Ryan pays the $450 up front, and after his down payment, he finances $37,280. At 6.4% for 60 months, his calculated payment lands around $728 a month. Marcus leases the comparable $38,000 vehicle. The CFPB notes that consumer leases typically run 2 to 4 years, with mileage limits usually between 10,000 and 15,000 miles a year, so our 36-month, 12,000-mile lease sits comfortably in that range. For Lease 1, we assume a 62% residual value and a 0.0020 money factor. That produces a base payment of about $524. Add the 6% tax, and Marcus pays roughly $556 a month. He makes no capital cost reduction, no down payment. At signing, he pays his first monthly payment, a modeled $695 acquisition fee, and $450 in registration and documentation costs. About $1,700 out the door. Worth repeating, those lease figures are assumptions. Real residuals, money factors, incentives, taxes, and fees can move a payment dramatically. Future vehicle prices are assumptions too. We're not pretending to know exactly what cars will cost 9 years from now. We just need a consistent scenario to test. 3. Day 1. Leasing looks attractive. On day 1, Marcus has the easier cash flow story. Ryan spends about $3,450 upfront between his down payment and fees. Marcus spends about $1,700, roughly $1,750 less. Then the payments begin. Ryan pays about $728, Marcus about $556. That's another $172 a month of breathing room for Marcus. And Marcus gets something real for that money. He's driving a new car with predictable costs, most of it still under factory warranty in our model. Actual coverage varies by manufacturer. In 3 years, he can move into another new vehicle. Newer safety tech, updated features, whatever fits his life at the time. Those are real benefits, even if they don't show up on a spreadsheet. Ryan's advantage is nearly invisible right now. His payment is higher, his upfront cash is higher, and the car starts losing market value the moment he drives it off the lot. If we stopped the comparison today, leasing would look like the clear winner. But year 3 is where the picture starts to shift. 4. Year 3, first checkpoint. After 36 months, Ryan has made 3 years of $728 payments. Including his upfront cash and about $1,100 of modeled maintenance, he's spent roughly $30,700 so far. But he no longer owes the original $37,280. His remaining balance is about $16,350. Now factor in the car's value. iSeeCars data suggests the average car loses around 31% of its value after 3 years, though this varies enormously by model. Applying that to Ryan's $38,000 car puts it near $26,200. Subtract the $16,350 he still owes, and Ryan has about $9,900 in equity. The car is worth more than what's left on the loan. Now look at Marcus. His 36 lease payments total almost $20,000. Add the $695 acquisition fee, $450 in fees, a modeled $395 disposition fee, and about $900 in service and wear costs and lease. One has cost him roughly $22,400, about $8,300 less cash than Ryan over the same 3 years. That matters. Leasing really did improve Marcus's cash flow, but now he has to hand the car back. Because he stayed within his 12,000-mile allowance and kept the car in normal condition, we're assuming 0 excess mileage or excess wear charges. That won't be true for every driver. The CFPB specifically warns that leases can carry charges for both. And turning in the car doesn't transfer any of its market value to Marcus. He simply hands it back and needs another vehicle, which means another lease. 5. Years 3 to 6, the math starts moving. Here's where a lot of By-V's lease comparisons go wrong. They borrow a later, more expensive payment and quietly apply it to earlier years. We won't do that. Lease 2 gets its own clean calculation. We assume the replacement vehicle costs $40,000, a modeled increase, not a forecast, a 61% residual, the same 0.0020 money factor, and the same 6% tax. Marcus's new payment comes to about $596 a month. Add the $695 acquisition fee, $450 in registration costs, a $395 disposition fee at the end, and roughly $900 for service and wear. Lease 2 totals about $23,900. Add Lease 1 and Lease 2 together. By the end of year 6, Marcus has spent approximately $46,300. Ryan, meanwhile, keeps making his $728 payment through month 60. Then, something happens that never happens in Marcus's continuous leasing path. Ryan's loan ends. Over 60 months, Ryan pays the lender about $43,700 total. Roughly $37,280 in principal, and about $6,400 in interest. Add his upfront cash and about $4,000 in cumulative maintenance, and his 6-year cash outflow comes to around $51,100. Actually about $4,800 more than Marcus has spent at this point. But Ryan now has no loan balance, and in our model, his 6-year-old car is still worth around $18,000. An estimate, not a promise. Marcus has spent less cash. Ryan owns an unencumbered asset. And from here, the monthly math changes completely. 6. The moment Ryan's loan disappears. Month 61. Ryan wakes up with no $728 payment due. That doesn't make his transportation free. A 6-year-old car still needs oil, filters, tires, brakes, fluids, batteries, scheduled service, and eventually, repairs. This is where a lot of buying wins comparisons get unrealistic, treating a paid-off car as if it costs nothing to run. That's not our model. For years 7 through 10, we budget an additional $6,500 in maintenance and repairs for Ryan. Combined with the first 6 years, his full 10-year maintenance and repair allowance is $10,500. That's a modeled reserve, not a guarantee. One transmission failure could blow past it, and a reliable car could come in well under it. Marcus, meanwhile, still has a monthly lease payment, and will keep having one as long as he keeps replacing each lease with another. That's the real financial power of a paid-off car. Not that an older vehicle costs nothing, but that its costs stay meaningfully lower than the new car payment you no longer have. 7. Years 6 to 10. Marcus starts lease 3. We assume the next comparable vehicle costs $42,000. Again, a modeled inflation path, not a forecast. With a 60% residual and the same 0.0020 money factor, his payment comes to about $637 a month, including tax. Over 36 months, plus fees and maintenance, lease 3 costs about $25,400, carrying him from year 6 to year 9. At year 9, Marcus has completed 3 full leases, totaling roughly $71,700. But our comparison runs 10 years, so he needs lease 4. This is the other place bad comparisons cheat. By calculating an expensive future lease and applying it to earlier years. We won't. Lease 4 starts at year 9 on a vehicle we assume costs $44,000 with a 60% residual and the same 0.0020 money factor. The payment comes to about $667 a month. But Marcus only makes the first 12 of those payments within our 10-year window, totaling about $8,000. Add a fourth $695 acquisition fee, $450 in registration costs, and roughly $300 in first-year maintenance, and that's another $9,450. There's no disposition fee yet, since Marcus is still driving the car when our comparison ends. Meanwhile, Ryan's car crosses roughly 120,000 miles. His maintenance risk is clearly higher now. A $2,500 repair might show up. Our reserve can absorb that. A $7,000 engine or transmission failure could meaningfully narrow his advantage. An unusually trouble-free car could widen it instead. The specific vehicle matters almost as much as the financing decision. 8. The 10-year final scoreboard. Let's total both paths. Ryan, $38,000 purchase price, $2,280 in tax, $450 in fees, roughly $6,400 in loan interest, and a $10,500 maintenance/repair allowance. Including his down payment and every loan payment, Ryan's 10-year cash outflow is approximately $57,600. Note what we didn't do. We didn't also subtract depreciation as a separate expense. That would double count the loss in value we've already captured through his actual cash flows. Marcus. Lease 1, $22,400, plus lease 2, $23,900, plus lease 3, $25,400, plus year 1 of lease 4, $9,450, equals approximately $81,200 with no mileage penalties and no excess wear charges included. That's a clean baseline for Marcus. So in pure cash spent, Marcus has paid about $23,600 more than Ryan. But Ryan still owns something. We're assuming a 10-year-old car with about 120,000 miles is worth roughly $10,000. Again, an illustrative resale estimate that varies a lot by model. Subtract that $10,000 once, and only once, from Ryan's cash outflow. Ryan's net transportation cost, approximately $47,600. Marcus's cash outflow, approximately $81,200, 1 year into a 4th lease, owning nothing under this baseline. The gap, roughly $33,600. Under these specific assumptions, keeping the financed vehicle for the full decade produces the lower net cost. But why matters more than the headline number? Ryan didn't win just because buying is always cheaper. He won because he kept the car for 5 full years after the loan disappeared, and still had resale value left at the end. 9. What could flip the result? Change the behavior, and you change the outcome. If Ryan buys new every 3 years and trades in repeatedly, he keeps restarting the steepest part of depreciation, plus sales tax, plus financing. And his advantage disappears. Bad financing hurts him too. Our 6.4% APR assumes a fairly competitive market. A much higher rate means thousands more in interest. A 7-year loan delays his payment-free years. Reliability matters enormously. Repeated expensive repairs shrink Ryan's edge fast. On the other side, an unusually strong subsidized lease, high residual, low money factor, solid incentives could shrink Marcus's costs substantially. Fees matter too. Waiving all 3 modeled $395 disposition fees would save him $1,185. Mileage can matter even more. Our Marcus drives exactly 12,000 miles a year within his allowance. If he actually drove 17,000, that's 5,000 excess miles a year. At an illustrative 25 cents per mile, that's another $1,250 annually. The actual contract terms are what decide this, not assumptions. Opportunity cost cuts both ways. Marcus keeps about $1,750 more cash on day one and roughly $172 more a month during lease 1. If he consistently invested the difference and earned positive returns, that would narrow Ryan's lead, though returns aren't guaranteed, and people don't always invest the savings. But once Ryan hits month 61, he could start investing some or all of the $728 he no longer owes a lender. So this cuts in both directions. Business use adds another layer entirely. Tax treatment of vehicle expenses depends on ownership structure, leasing terms, business use percentage, and other facts. That's a tax question, not a reason to assume leasing is automatically better for taxes. Talk to a qualified tax professional for anything business-related. 10. The real verdict. So, buy or lease. In this specific 10-year scenario, buying and keeping the car wins by roughly $33,600. But look at what actually created that gap. Ryan financed for 5 years, then kept driving for 5 more. Those payment-free years let him spread his original purchase cost across a much longer stretch. And at the end, he still owned an estimated $10,000 asset. That's the real engine behind the advantage, not the word buy, the behavior behind it. If Ryan constantly replaced his cars, chose expensive financing, or owned something unreliable, this advantage could shrink or vanish. And Marcus isn't making an irrational choice. He spends more in this model, but he gets something for it. A newer car every 3 years, most of the decade under warranty, a predictable replacement schedule, lower exposure to aging car repair risk, and the flexibility to change vehicle type as his life changes. For a lot of people, that's genuinely worth paying for. Think of leasing less as a trick for a cheap payment and more as paying for a continuous new car cycle. Think of buying less as automatic wealth building and more as a strategy that gets powerful specifically when you keep a reliable car long after the loan is gone. The lowest payment today and the lowest cost over 10 years are not always the same thing. So, what would you choose for your next car? Buy or lease? And what matters most to you? The lowest long-term cost, a lower monthly payment, reliability, or always driving something newer? Tell me in the comments. And if you want more personal finance decisions broken down with real math instead of slogans, like the video and subscribe.